An amazing song, and of course, having been familiar with the Bible, you guys recognize that as from Ecclesiastes. And so I thought that really appropriate for our discussion today, more so than any of the songs that I have actually written. I like to play my songs, but sometimes something else just fits in a little bit better. So our discussion today is on cycles, presence amidst change. And that's kind of a recurring thing, isn't it? Especially these days when change seems to be coming so fast. Are you guys familiar with the little story about the two fish that are... Wait, let me just see if I can do that. There you go. So the two fish that are cruising along, and so as they're going, pretty soon here comes this old, wise, sage fish. And as he's passing the two fish, he says, "Good morning, boys. How's the water?" And they say, "Good morning, good morning." And they go another couple feet, and one fish turns to the other fish and says, "What's water?" And the idea behind the story is that there are things that we are involved in, that we are a part of, that we just can't quite see sometimes. And so what I want to do is talk about cycles, because I first got kind of excited about cycles when I heard about universal respiration. Everybody's like, things to make you go, universal respiration. This was a YouTube video that I came across, and I watched it. I was like, this is fascinating. But in the Buddhist cosmology, there is such a thing, and there's a whole bunch of terms, and I don't remember all the terms, so forgive me there. You can look it up if you'd like to. And I actually knew it at one point, but there's a term for the universe's respiration. It's breathing. So it started at what we call the Big Bang, right? And, if you follow that all the way through, I think in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and boom, we have this explosion of matter. And so the universe is expanding. Scientists have shown that it's expanding. We still don't know what it's expanding into, but it is expanding. And there are some indications and signs that it is beginning to slow down. And so in the Buddhist cosmology, it is slowing down. And at some point, it's going to stop. And it's going to begin to come back. And there's a name for this, and it was like not an eon, but something similar to that. I have forgotten the term, but when it comes all the way back and we have another explosion, there's this huge, beautiful, probably chaotic, especially when it's at this point, cycle of the universe breathing. Tim!
When it comes back, it's called the big crunch.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, crunch, the crunch, yes. I'm sure it will be quite the crunch. But this whole cycle just totally fascinated me, and it also was expansive for me. It started making me see, it's like, okay, wow, here I am, this little dot on this little, in the middle of Kansas, in the middle of the big blue marble, which is in the backwaters of the galaxy, which there's a couple billion galaxies, and it's expanding. So there was an expansive feeling to it for me. So as I begin looking at this cycle, I got excited and interested in cycles, period. And so I began looking at all kinds of cycles, and I came to the conclusion that what's not a cycle? It's like everywhere I looked, things are cycles. Cycles were just everywhere. And so I became interested in that and kind of looking at that. So now I want to open this up to us. So let's take a look at cycles for a second. Obviously, there are the cycles that we're not really directly related. Well, I guess we actually are directly related to, like, for example, the big cycle of the universal respiration. But it's not something that we really experience on a day-to-day basis. Let's bring it back into our own homes. Let's bring it back into our own lives. What are some of these cycles? We have the most obvious cycles of spring, fall, summer, winter. We have the cycles of, going to work in the morning, coming home at night. We have all these interesting cycles. So let's take a moment and just kind of think about these cycles that are so abundant in our lives. I mean, on the weekends, is that a cycle for you guys where maybe you do housework and yard work, and then during the week it's more about maybe you have classes and lessons and readings and things that you're doing during the week? Take a look at these cycles. And I am going somewhere with this. Everybody's like, yeah. Tim's like, thank goodness, because really there are a lot of cycles and they are abundant. But I think it's important from a spiritual standpoint to be aware of these cycles and not so much at the subject and the whim of these cycles. When we are not aware of these cycles, it seems like things are crazy and chaotic, or things are really, really good. No, wait, they're chaotic. No, they're really good. It's just like this constant ebb and flow, and so we're at the whim of the cycle. So spiritually speaking, when we become aware of these cycles is when we can actually begin to cultivate presence and equanimity. Equanimity is, for me, it's that I almost want to say lack of responsiveness to situations that come. Some of my friends are like, that doesn't, shock you? That doesn't, aren't you angry about that guy cutting you off? And so what I've been cultivating is equanimity, which is there's lots of things going on in the world constantly. All these cycles are constantly going on. Cycles are crashing into each other. Other people's cycles are crashing into my cycles. But as I become aware of the cycles, I am no longer at their beck and call. And so that's really why this discussion, this talk, has come about. So let's do that for a moment, because there are not only the obvious cycles such as the seasons, but what about the not so obvious cycles? So for example, let's look at relationships. Let's look at relationships for a moment. Can you think maybe about in the past, could have been last week, could have been over the lifetime, the cycles of relationships that you've had, maybe with bosses, maybe with coworkers, maybe with neighbors, and it could be spouses and loved ones. These cycles, and so I've been looking at these cycles. It's like, when does the cycle go perhaps become more challenging and more difficult when I'm working with, a boss? And I'm noticing that it's always towards the weekend for me. There's a cycle. It's like everything's great. On Monday, everybody's just comatose anyway. And Tuesday, we start to snap out of it. And Wednesdays are just downright productive and things are happening. And then by Thursday, we're starting to get, think about what we're going to do this week. And then Friday, we just want to get out of here. And of course, why is that the day that I choose to talk to my boss about this problem that we're having? And then all of a sudden there's an issue. And when I look back, it's like, wow, that seems to be constantly happening. So you see, the beautiful thing about this is that our souls attract to us every experience we need to wake up. Famous Eckhart Tolle quote. Our souls are attracting every experience we need to wake up. Hence, there's another beautiful cycle. So, if you're looking at relationships, why is it I keep attracting these women in my life who are crazy? I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying it's specifically me, although I am on my second marriage, and there were many before, not marriages, but many relationships, and I kept wondering why these keep taking a downturn. Well, it's really a beautiful thing, because there was something I needed to learn about myself in these relationships that wasn't so very obvious to me, which is again why I say when we can cultivate awareness and take a look at these cycles and see if maybe there's a pattern emerging, of course, which is what cycles are, And then from that pattern, we can learn what it is that we need to learn to grow. I like some of the old sayings. There are no mistakes, only lessons. Things like that. There are no mistakes in the universe, just opportunities for us to grow and to change and to learn. So let's take a moment and go inside. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, relax for a moment. Not the obvious patterns, but let's take a look at patterns. Maybe they're financial patterns. Maybe these are cycles of depression, cycles of joy, cycles of maybe socially you're just having an awesomely great time. Maybe you're lonely. These are spiritual questions. Why do I feel lonely? And what I'm suggesting to us today is that maybe there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with what's going on. Maybe it's just a cycle that we're involved in right now. If you can pull the camera back and see the cycle, then you're not caught up in it. The Buddhists have a great saying that no snowflake ever fell in the wrong spot. Well, there's nothing wrong with what's going on in your life right now. It may feel bad, but if you can pull the camera back and see the cycle, perhaps it's just a part of a larger picture. So what's going on for you right now? What's happening for you right now in your life? Is there worry and stress over money? Is there perhaps worry and stress over work, job issues? How about the government? Is there worry and stress over what's going to happen politically? If we can pull the camera back a little bit, we'll see that this is part of a cycle. There's always the old joke that if you don't like the weather in Kansas, just wait 10 minutes. Well, guess what? It's really kind of the same thing about prosperity and lack. If you're not feeling prosperous, just wait. It will come. If you're feeling like you're in a spot of lack, be patient. Let the cycle come full circle. If you're feeling lonely, it's perhaps just a part of this cycle. This is what I'm suggesting to us today. Not just a cycle, a beautiful, divine cycle. If you're feeling joyous, good. But guess what? The cycle will bring about something in your life that's going to make you sad. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. I know that sounds a little bit like, hey, are you happy? Well, just wait. It's not really like that. Here's what I mean when I say that. Where we run into resistance, problems, issues, and the fighting and the flailing in life is because we're trying to hold on to the up cycle and we're trying to push away the down cycle. We're fighting, constantly fighting. Good God, aren't you tired? Clinging to this top of the cycle where everything's great, prosperity's wonderful, I love my boyfriend or my girlfriend, things are just awesome. Then all of a sudden, as will happen, something happens. And now that boyfriend or girlfriend is gone. The job is talking about layoffs, and you're just going, oh God, and so you're pushing away. No, keep that away from me. I don't want that. I want this, and clinging. Instead, I am suggesting, my friends, that there is a middle path, a middle way, and that is to observe the cycles and be present as they come and they go, as they turn, to be present with them. Now, I'm not saying that it's not going to be painful. It will. But there's also great joy in it. As the cycle comes around, there's great joy at the top, and there is sadness and pain at the bottom. But welcome to the human race. It is a beautiful thing. feeling that full range of emotions as things come around. But the suffering and the fighting and the struggle and the strife are not a part of it. At least they don't have to be. You can be a witness. There's a saying that my teacher, Ben Worth, is often quoted in saying is that awareness unties every knot that we have. When we can become aware of the cycle, we suddenly realize that, yeah, this is tough right now. Yeah, this is painful. Money is tight. I got to tighten the belt. Ramen noodles all this week. But I do know, and I can trust in the universe. I can trust in the one power, the one presence in my life and in all the universe that flows through me and as me. I can trust and know that it will cycle back around because that's the nature of the universe. For crying out loud, the whole universe is doing it itself. So therefore, there's a great lesson for us to see that, wow, and we are a part of that, an integral part of that. So, okay, Victor, I'm buying into your idea that everything is a cycle. What do we do with this? Well, as I was suggesting, there's a middle path. So one of those is simply to be aware of the cycle. Oh, I'm kind of in the middle of a cycle, or I'm at the bottom of a cycle, or yay, I'm at the top of a cycle. This is great. Has anybody here ever studied biorhythms? Yeah. I know I go to a lot of holistic fairs and things like that, and I love, and sometimes I get on the computer, and they'll hook things up to you, and they'll talk to you about your biorhythms. And I totally agree with that. There was a point in my life when I thought it was woohoo, but I do not anymore. I've come to the realization, I've seen enough to know that I don't know nothing. There is so much going on more than what I can see with my limited senses. These 5 senses are terribly limited, folks. Terribly limited. There's so much they can't see. And so biorhythms, I believe, and again, I believe biorhythms are a cycle. Our bodies are in cycle with it. And what's fascinating, when you look at what's the book that's out that talks about walking barefoot on the earth and experiencing soil again? Earthing. Yes, earthing. And so what's great and what's beautiful is that there are a lot of people that are realizing this as well, that about cycles, and they're saying, hey folks, we've lost touch. I mean, there was a time in our early days, the Native Americans were totally in touch and in tune with the cycles. I mean, it was amazing, and they were in touch and in tune with the earth and all of its cycles, and were a part of it. Look at our sleep schedules. We eat at a certain time instead of when we're hungry. We sleep at a certain time instead of when we're sleepy. It's strange how we have gotten away from any of the natural cycles of the earth itself. There was a lady that was telling a story about she went to India, and she had some fruit with her, and there was this guy who was a guard, and she was standing around waiting for something to go on, and she had some fruit, and she decided that she wanted to perhaps start a conversation. So she walks up to the guard, and she says, hey, I've got an orange. Would you like an orange? You look like you've been standing here for quite a while. And he says, no, ma'am, that's a winter food. And she was like, oh. And it totally fascinated her, so she struck up a discussion about, I don't quite know what you mean. And he says, well, there are foods that we eat in the summer, and there are foods that we eat in the winter. For example, we eat a lot of meats and things in the winter because of the fats to take on, things to actually generate heat and insulate was the word I was trying to find. Insulate ourselves. And there are foods that we eat at other times that do things for us. And she just became totally enamored with this. Have you guys ever heard of eating for your blood type? Again, I think there was a time naturally when we would follow our cravings because there's a cycle going on in our lives, and we would be drawn to foods that we really truly need. But that's been changed because now we only draw to foods that are available or that are really yummy. Cake. And so all of these I consider to be cycles. And so to answer my own question, what do we do now, Victor, if we truly believe in listening to what you're saying about cycles? We take a look at beginning to listen to our bodies, beginning to maybe even do some research and some studying into the cycles of food and sleep and work. There's some great studies coming out about high school kids and maybe moving high school from 10 to like 5 or 6, because high schoolers, teenagers must have a certain amount of sleep at certain times. So we're starting to come back to realizing that there are these cycles. So step one is simply awareness. Being aware that everything that you're going through right now is perfect and it's part of a cycle. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't fight it. Step 2, stop clinging to the top of the cycle when everything is fantastic and doing everything in your power to keep that from going away, because guess what? You're supposed to say what? Guess what? It's going to go away. But here's the good news. On this side, where things are rotten and not so much fun and difficult and challenging and we're arguing, you don't have to force that and try to build walls and keep that away, because it's going to go away. It's part of the cycle. It will circle back around. Something will change. Maybe it's you. Something will change and you will come back around. I love this saying, chaos is what we see when we can't see far enough. So these cycles and cultivating presence amidst change, for me, the experience has, and sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes I lose sight of the cycles and I have to stop and I have to go in and I have to remind myself. It's like, okay, where am I at in this cycle? What is it I need to learn from this cycle? Not because I want to keep it away or cling to it, because it has an important lesson and it can help me to, and this is step 3, get in tune with the cycles. What's the old saying? It's not about finding shelter in the storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Don't you love that one? And so if I can get more in tune with the cycle, as I realize that things are great, I can rejoice. I can share it with other people. When things become difficult and I don't want to go outside, I don't want to talk to anybody, I don't want to look at social media, instead of thinking there's something wrong with me or being disgusted with all these happy people, I can realize that I'm in this cycle of withdrawing. I'm in the cycle of introspection. Introspection. Anyway, I'm in that time of my life right now where I need to go inside and see what's going on, experience it, examine it, play with it, be curious about it. Not be at its beck and call and think, oh God, everything's going to in a handbasket, or what is it? Where am I and why am I in this handbasket? So these are the 3 things that and I imagine there are more. These are the 3 things that I came up with. Is 1, to simply be aware of the cycle. 2 is to be aware of your resistance to the bad stuff and your clinging to the good stuff. And number 3 is to simply learn to perhaps get in sync with the cycle, to learn to flow with it. It's okay that I just want to stay home tonight. It's okay that I really just kind of want to curl up in a corner with a good book. Or maybe it's okay that I want to go and hit the bowling alley and party with everybody and just, get wild. It's all part of the cycle, and it's a beautiful thing. So, with that being said, I think we should go into meditation. I'm getting a nod from Mark. So if you'll prepare yourself